He ruled late-night television for 3 decades, his monologue a nightly ritual that lulled millions of Americans into laughter before bedtime. When Johnny Carson ended his final Tonight Show in May 1992, the country felt as if it had lost a beloved friend. And when the news broke on January 23, 2005, that Carson had passed away at age 79, the grief reverberated from Hollywood to small towns where his jokes had woven into the fabric of everyday life. For 40 years, Carson's wry humor and effortless charm epitomized late-night comfort, a quick quip, a genuine smile, a calming presence amid turbulent times. And his death was more than the loss of a television host. It felt like the final fading of a golden age of broadcast, a solemn reminder that icons, no matter how invincible they seem, are mortal. Tonight, we explore the final chapter of Johnny Carson's life, the circumstances of his tragic decline, and the profound cultural void his departure created. Even the man who appeared so unflappable on screen had private struggles that few viewers knew about. Behind the crisp suits and perfectly timed punchlines lay years of health battles, intense pressures, and a restless drive for privacy that transformed his retirement into a slow retreat from public life. In the early 1990s, Carson began complaining of persistent fatigue, an ominous harbinger of the pneumonia and emphysema that would plague him later. Friends recall that after signing off The Tonight Show for the last time, he seemed both relieved and adrift, relieved to escape the punishing schedule, unsettled by a newfound void where work had defined him. His wife Joan, his only spouse after a series of early marriages, became his caretaker, navigating doctor's appointments and mediating between Carson's fierce desire for solitude and medical advice urging regular checkups. By 2002, whispers of Carson's declining health started to surface. Confidential sources described hospital stays for bronchial infections that tested his resilience, though he had insisted on secrecy, believing that vulnerability would tarnish his legendary image. A few close aides leaked details. Carson's doctors warned that continued smoking and the toll of years on stage had weakened his lungs. In private, he would joke about trading the bright lights of Burbank for oxygen tanks, yet he struggled with the idea of physical frailty. Even as his voice grew raspier, he maintained a measured optimism he would recover, perhaps host a farewell roast or cameo in a comedy film. Instead, the deterioration accelerated, and in October 2004, he was admitted to the hospital for pneumonia complications that forced a ventilator. When Carson's condition became critical, entertainment news outlets swirled with speculation. Talk show hosts paid tribute on air. Former guests like Steve Martin and Robin Williams recorded video messages begging fans to send good vibes for Carson's recovery. Social media was still nascent, but blogs erupted in candlelight vigils and prayer chains. Fans congregated outside the UCLA Medical Center, clutching signed Tonight Show memorabilia and holding impromptu memorial services. Dozens of well-wishers left flowers at the entrance, while local radio stations ran continuous loops of Carson's most iconic sketches, Karnak the Magnificent to his playful serenades with guest singers. The pressure on his medical team to provide updates, and the public's insatiable hunger for every detail, underscored the extraordinary bond Johnny Carson shared with the nation. On January 23, 2005, Carson succumbed to respiratory failure. He died quietly in his hospital suite, surrounded by family and a few trusted friends. The official announcement described a peaceful passing, yet many who had followed his career sensed the sadness more keenly than any press release could convey. Television networks broke programming to air specials, clips of Carson's most heartwarming moments, tributes from colleagues, and news anchors offering solemn reflections on his contribution to American culture. In Times Square, a giant digital billboard transitioned from an advertisement to a silent portrait of Carson, framed by the words, "Thank you, Johnny." The following day, newspapers ran multiple page spreads, each image a reminder of Carson's steady gaze and easy grin, a reminder that comedy, in his hands, was not merely entertainment, but a unifying force that bridged generations. Even after his passing, Johnny Carson's privacy endured. True to his wishes, he left very few directives about a public funeral. Joan Carson opted for an intimate service. Attendance was limited to family and selected entertainers. Johnny's cremated remains were scattered over the Pacific Ocean, the vast horizon serving as a metaphor for the immeasurable reach of his influence. Fans who had hoped for a grandiose television farewell had to settle for late-night cast members sharing anecdotes on camera, Lorne Michaels recalling Carson's mentorship of Saturday Night Live, Jay Leno describing the fatherly guidance that shaped his early career. These stories, layered with irreverent humor and poignant sincerity, reinforced the notion that even in death, Johnny Carson's legacy was shared through human connection. In the days following Johnny Carson's passing, America collectively felt the silence left by his absence. Late night brings no comfort without his gentle grin illuminating dark living rooms around the nation. Yet the end of his life sparked not just grief, but a longing to understand the man behind laughter. Before white hair and hospital gowns, there was Norfolk, Nebraska, a boy enchanted by radio broadcasts. Young Carson spied nightly radio shows through the family's modest living room speaker, dreaming of one day hosting. His father, Homer, a grocer with limited means, encouraged Johnny's studies but feared showbiz instability. Mother Ruth, by contrast, nurtured his comedic spark, laughing at every homemade routine performed in their hallway. At age 12, he saved pennies to buy a wind-up record player and a stack of Columbia 45s. He'd play them for neighborhood friends, mimicking crooner voices and reciting jokes between songs. School offered little acclaim for quirky Johnny, who stumbled through algebra but excelled at cracking wise. His classmates dubbed him Carson the Comedian, after spotting him crafting witty skits at lunch tables. Following high school, Carson attended the University of Nebraska, initially majoring in chemistry and physics. A fluke turn toward journalism led him to the university's radio station and a lifelong broadcasting obsession. When the Korean War arrived, Johnny joined the U.S. Navy Reserve, serving in happier capacities than combat. Even there, his natural flair found an outlet in camp talent shows and late-night radio segments. After discharge, he graduated from Nebraska and packed his bags for Los Angeles, heart brimming with hope. Hollywood studios offered coy interest, and he worked menial radio gigs before landing a midweek guest spot. Producers soon recognized his ease before microphones and penned opportunities on The Morning Show. In 1955, at $15 per episode, he debuted on the daytime stage as a smooth-talking announcer. That modest start led to positions on game shows like Do You Trust Your Wife and Who Do You Trust? On the latter, Carson's sharp wit and effortless banter elevated him from announcer to co-host status. His gentle rapport with contestants revealed a compassionate side that balanced his razor-sharp punchlines. By 1962, NBC's Tonight Show beckoned, and he inherited the mantle from Jack Paar amid nervous anticipation. Fans initially worried that Carson lacked Parr's emotional depth, but his first monologue silenced doubts instantly. He launched his signature style, relaxed attire, conversational monologue, and playful interactions with Ed McMahon. Each night, as flickering cameras warmed to life, America tuned in to watch Carson work subtle magic. Chinatown alleys, Broadway marquees, or small-town diners, no backdrop escaped his observant cultural commentary. Over 3 decades, he refined timing to near perfection, allowing both jokes and pauses to land with grace. Fellow comedians revered Carson as a gentle mentor who offered guidance absent of ego and drama. Stars like Bob Newhart, David Letterman, and Ellen DeGeneres credit him as pivotal to their own breakthroughs. Yet Carson's personal life remained guarded. His off-camera world was quieter, tinged with solitude and restraint. His marriage to Joanne Copeland grew strong in retirement as she became his steadfast pillar during tough health battles. He donated millions to educational causes, quietly funding scholarships and broadcasting programs across Nebraska. Fans remained unaware of those secret gifts until students publicly attributed their success to anonymous donors. Few realized that Carson financed hidden camera labs for aspiring journalists to practice real investigative reporting. As his illnesses progressed, he refused fanfare, declining public events that might expose his frailty. Joanne stood by his side during each hospital stay, preserving dignity amid medical uncertainty and public concern. Their partnership endured until his final breath, a testament to love that persisted through fame and illness. After his death, his estate revealed multi-million-dollar endowments created to support cancer research initiatives. Those donations honored his sister, Catherine, who had battled leukemia and later succumbed at a young age. Every act of benevolence contrasted sharply with his comedic legacy, painting Johnny as both joke master and humanitarian. Networks aired retrospectives celebrating both aspects, the laughter and the quiet generosity that defined him. Today, documentaries revisit his early Navy days to explain how discipline and humor intertwined in his craft. Biographers pore over personal letters once locked away, discovering his handwritten apologies to comedians he offended. Those rediscovered admissions reveal a humble soul sensitive to the sting of unintended remarks. While Carson's public persona sparkled, his private notebooks brimmed with introspection and self-critique. In that contrast between stage bravado and personal vulnerability lies the poignancy of his tragic final years. He lived as an icon yet died quietly, reminding us that laughter can coexist with fragility and farewell. His memory endures always. In the final months of Johnny Carson's life, a once indomitable figure found himself engaged in a battle no punchline could conquer. Diagnosed with emphysema and recurrent pneumonia, his robust frame weakened under the relentless toll of respiratory struggles. Hospital stays alternated with brief returns to his Beverly Hills sanctuary, each discharge followed by whispered concerns about his delicate condition. Yet even amid oxygen tubing and medical machines, Carson retained the quick wit that had defined his career. Legend has it he greeted nurses with dry one-liners and entertained fellow patients with impromptu riffing sessions. Those who cared for him in his last days described a man buoyed by humor, using laughter as both shield and solace against the stark reality of his frailty. It was a paradox the master of comedic timing rendered powerless by the relentless rhythm of breath and heart. Behind closed doors, Carson's private world became a sanctuary of quiet reflection. In the dim glow of his study, walls lined with framed Tonight Show scripts and cherished photographs, he invited only a trusted circle, his wife Joanne and a handful of longtime collaborators. These intimate gatherings replaced the glare of studio lights with muted laughter and heartfelt stories. He would lean back in his leather armchair, glance at a faded audience clap sign, and recall the thrill of his first monologue or the nervous energy before a live taping. Snapshots of vulnerability revealed the human side of an icon accustomed to hiding behind the safety of a stage persona. For Carson, these farewell reunions offered a chance to revisit triumphs without the pressure of performance. A final opportunity to relish the camaraderie that had fueled his ascent. News of Carson's decline did not remain secret for long. In December 2004, entertainment outlets reported that he had spent several weeks in intensive care, triggering a media maelstrom. Television networks broke into regular programming, airing curated retrospectives of his most unforgettable interviews and comedic sketches. Social media forums, though still young, lit up with threads like "Pray for Johnny" and "Tonight Show Forever," as fans swapped anecdotes about late-night solace and childhood rituals tied to his monologues. The University of Nebraska-Lincoln, home to the Johnny Carson School of Communication, organized candlelit vigils on campus lawns, where students and alumni lingered in hushed tribute beneath portraits of their most celebrated alumnus. Across the nation, public affection crystallized into collective concern. Viewers who had once laughed in unison now held their breath, anxious for news of their beloved host. On January 23, 2005, the inevitable announcement arrived: Johnny Carson had passed away peacefully at age 79 from respiratory failure. The response was both immediate and profound. NBC interrupted regularly scheduled shows to air live press conferences, and hosts from David Letterman to Conan O'Brien shared personal remembrances, their voices cracking with emotion. In Carson's Nebraska hometown, local radio stations ran uninterrupted loops of classic Tonight Show themes interspersed with fan tributes. The day of his private funeral drew a silent procession of comedy luminaries. Stars who credited Carson as mentor and hero, who paid their respects in solemn procession. His casket, adorned with a single gardenia, rested beneath soft candlelight as the assembled mourners honored a man who had become much more than television's late-night host. When his ashes were scattered over the Pacific, it felt as though a part of the nation's collective spirit had been released to the endless horizon. Even after his death, Johnny Carson's influence only magnified. Museums clamored for artifacts: his signature bow tie, his iconic desk, and those velvet suits that once graced Tonight Show broadcasts. They were installed as prizes of popular culture behind glass cases, inviting viewers to step into history. Documentary filmmakers fast-track productions, dissecting the art of his monologue, the subtleties of his interviews, and the unspoken rules that governed his on-camera persona. Scholars studied archival footage to quantify the perfect pause or timing that elicited uproarious laughter. Auction houses reported surges in bidding for Tonight Show memorabilia, a trend that underscored Carson's enduring brand power. Even modern comedians acknowledge a debt to his style. His blend of warmth and razor-sharp delivery became a template for generations of late-night talent. Yet beyond all the accolades and institutional reverence, the truest measure of Carson's legacy lies in the countless personal narratives of those who found solace in his laughter. Veterans returning from conflict zones spoke of tuning in nightly to find a comforting voice that eased their homesickness. Families recovering from illness discovered that his gentle humor offered moments of respite in hospital corridors. Young couples carved out rituals around his monologues, laughing together in small living rooms, forging shared memories that would outlast the broadcast. In school auditoriums across America, aspiring broadcasters took to performing their own versions of Carson's sign-off, hoping to capture a fraction of his charm. These stories, woven through decades of letters, interviews, and late-night thank-you notes, reveal a truth: Johnny Carson was far more than a host. He became a cultural touchstone whose gift of connection transcended the flicker of studio lights. The legacy echoes across every continent and beyond each day, reminding us that compassion and comedy can walk hand in hand across every continent and beyond. And so, as the world continues to seek refuge in laughter amid uncertainty, Johnny Carson's spirit remains as vital as ever, an enduring testament to the idea that even a single smile can echo across generations, never truly fading into silence. In the shadow of Johnny Carson's final sign-off, television executives scrambled to fill the void. On late night, NBC aired a week of tribute specials, re-airing classic monologues and insider anecdotes in his original Studio 6B. Each night, Jay Leno, David Letterman, and Conan O'Brien appeared to reminisce about Carson's guidance. Stories of backstage pranks, quiet counsel, and career-changing advice. The homage drew record ratings and reminded viewers why Carson remained the unchallenged monarch of late-night comedy. Leno, reflecting on a backstage note that read, "Be yourself. Everything else is a joke," credited Carson with giving him the confidence to own the monologue. Letterman recalled advice to treat jokes as conversations with friends, while Conan O'Brien shared how a simple letter from Carson praised his originality. These anecdotes underlined Carson's greatest gift, not just comedic skill, but mentorship. By nurturing new talent, he shaped careers behind the scenes. Each memory shared on these tribute shows revealed the depth of his impact, extending far beyond camera lights into the personal journeys of those he championed. In the wake of Carson's departure, NBC promoted Jay Leno as his successor. Though Leno shared Carson's affable style, maintaining the relaxed monologue and interviewer-friendly format, his tenure revealed the fragility of late-night traditions. Audience taste shifted toward edgier comedy, and cable news segments began to overlap primetime and late-night slots. David Letterman moved to a rival network, injecting competition that fractured the previously unified audience. Conan O'Brien's later stint illustrated that even injected novelty could not easily recapture the communal ritual Carson perfected. These shifts underscored how irreplaceable his nuanced blend of warmth and wit truly was. While fans debated hosts and ratings, Carson's most enduring impact took shape off-air. Before his death, he quietly established the Johnny Carson Foundation, dedicating millions to scholarships, broadcasting, and media education. His alma mater, the University of Nebraska, launched the Johnny Carson School of Communication, with a special archives wing housing his monologue drafts, cue cards, and Tonight Show scripts. Aspiring broadcasters study these artifacts to learn his precision and pacing. Media centers received grants to upgrade studios and fund investigative journalism programs. In promoting media literacy, Carson's generosity extended his influence far beyond nightly laughs. Carson's physical legacy also fueled a booming memorabilia market. Auction houses reported fierce bidding wars for items like his bow ties, original desk lamp, and those laminated cue cards scrawled with punchlines. The Paley Center in New York and Smithsonian Institution secured artifacts, displaying them behind glass for visitors to study his handwritten annotations. Private collectors paid six-figure sums for rare Tonight Show props, while universities acquired personal letters and backstage photographs for their special collections. Through each sale and display, Carson's presence endured as a tangible bridge between broadcast history and admirers who treasured the artifacts themselves. Decades after his sign-off, Carson's style continued inspiring comedy and performing arts. Sketch comedians incorporate his poised pauses into routines, while university drama troupes stage live recreations of his monologue introductions. Filmmakers filming historical dramas often include meticulously reconstructed late-night sets, complete with microphone and rotating audience chairs. Digital content creators film homage videos, layering Carson's archival audio over modern imagery to explore the evolution of humor. Even advertising campaigns borrow his charm, featuring voice-overs that echo his gentle cadences. In these cultural echoes, Johnny's influence extends beyond television archives into the creative strategies of new storytellers. In the digital age, Carson's philosophies find fresh life online. Podcasts titled Tomorrow with Johnny mimic his conversational monologue, inviting comedians to reflect on timing and pacing. Online courses deconstruct his three-act structure: opening joke, follow-up gag, and closing tag for aspiring writers. Streaming services maintain nightly blocks of vintage Tonight Show episodes, marketed as Carson classics to audiences seeking familiar comfort. User-generated content flourishes. Fans post mashups of his best moments, while social media threads debate which guest banter remains timeless. Across these formats, Johnny Carson remains a benchmark for humor that balances spontaneity with heartfelt connection. Today, years after his passing, Johnny Carson's legacy continues to guide hosts, writers, and fans alike. Whenever a new comedian nails that perfect pause or teases a soft punchline into genuine applause, Carson's spirit is at work. His generosity lives on in scholarships training storytellers and in exhibits that invite audiences to experience history through artifacts and memory deeply resonant with stories. While late-night television evolves with platforms and personalities, the fundamental rhythm Carson established, humor rooted in humanity, remains an unwritten guidepost. And in every corner of pop culture, his influence endures, a testament to laughter's power to unite. Carson's professionalism and grace in facing mortality have become subjects of study, dignity under timeless duress, and leaving a remarkable legacy on one's own terms. In the weeks that followed Johnny Carson's funeral, the world felt the reverberations of his absence in ways both subtle and profound. Television guides, once bustling with fresh late-night offerings, now carried empty slots marked "In Memoriam" and marathons of archival clips. Viewers who had grown accustomed to tuning in at 11:30 saw the blank screen as a reminder that the comforting ritual had ended forever. Across cable and network channels, programming directors scrambled to balance tribute specials with regular schedules, striving to honor Carson's legacy without overstaying their welcome. Every late-night lineup became a liturgical sequence: first, a disclaimer thanking him for decades of service, then, reels of his most iconic sketches, finally, a moment of silence before returning to contemporary hosts. The absence of his steady presence became its own presence, a void filled by collective nostalgia. In homes and bars, online forums, and water cooler chats, Carson's nickname, the King of Late Night, took on new gravity. People shared oral histories of personal encounters. The night a parent recovered from surgery and found respite in Carson's jokes, or the late-night study sessions illuminated by his gentle asides. College newspapers published essays on how their generation inherited a comedic style steeped in warmth rather than provocation. Critics who once bickered over quip quality now agreed that Carson's humor created a rare sanctuary, a momentary escape from political turmoil or economic strife. And as the months passed, the phrase "Tonight Show absence" entered cultural shorthand for any beloved figure's departure, an acknowledgement that sometimes loss is felt most keenly in empty chairs. Academic institutions took note of this atmospheric shift. Communication departments reported a spike in enrollment for courses on media history and broadcast production. Professors redesigned syllabi around case studies of Carson's monologue structure, his pacing, and the psychology of audience rapport. In graduate seminars, students analyzed the interplay between his ad-lib charisma and the scripted framework of network television. The Johnny Carson School of Communication formalized an annual symposium titled "Echoes in the Studio," inviting scholars to present papers on everything from cue-card linguistics to the ethics of televised intimacy. By dissecting his methods, academics sought to preserve not just his material art, but the emotional architecture that underpinned it. Meanwhile, a wave of creative works took inspiration from Carson's genteel approach. Playwrights penned one-act dramas set in late-night control rooms, using his measured silences to underscore characters' private struggles. Filmmakers crafted docudramas tracing the evolution of televised humor, where Carson's role resembled that of a cultural midwife guiding comedy's maturation. Novelist Tyler Grayson's bestseller, Behind the Velvet Rope, fictionalized a late-night host navigating the paradox of intimacy and performance. A clear homage to Carson's balancing act. Even game designers introduced mechanics that rewarded players for Carson-style timing, teaching users the rewards of well-placed pauses between dialogue prompts. Across mediums, creators paid homage to the spacious kindness of his craft. Fans, meanwhile, sought ways to keep Carson's memory alive in personal routines. The popular mobile app Nightlight offered a monologue mode, featuring daily Carson quips calibrated to play during moments of user stress, commutes, work breaks, or before sleep. Radio stations dedicated late-night hours to Carson classics, interrupting music playlists to sample audience laughter and Ed McMahon's booming introductions. Local theater tropes organized Carson After Dark nights, screening vintage episodes in intimate venues where attendees laughed together in communal relief. These gatherings underscored the social dimension of his legacy comedy as a shared experience rather than solitary amusement. Collectors and historians joined forces to safeguard physical artifacts. The Paley Center's special Carson collection expanded to include behind-the-scenes camera equipment, production notes, and personal correspondence. Archives digitized thousands of hours of unedited footage, rehearsal takes, candid backstage moments, and unbroadcast rehearsals, meticulously cataloged for future research. Institutions partnered with the Carson estate to fund preservation grants, ensuring that aging videotapes would be converted into stable digital formats. For the first time, scholars and fans gained access to raw material that revealed both the pristine final product and the human imperfections breathed away in editing rooms. International broadcasters took notice too. In the United Kingdom, the BBC curated A Night with Carson, a retrospective series that introduced second-generation audiences to American late-night traditions. Viewers in Japan tuned into subtitled highlight reels, marveling at the universality of his gentle humor despite cultural differences. In Australia and South Africa, local hosts cited Carson's influence in crafting conversational interview styles that felt personal rather than performative. Across continents, his legacy proved that comedy rooted in humanity could bridge linguistic and cultural divides. Perhaps most poignantly, Carson's philanthropic contributions continued to unfold. Grants from the Johnny Carson Foundation supported mental health initiatives, drawing on his own quiet battles with the pressures of fame. Community centers established comedy therapy workshops using recordings of his shows to encourage laughter as a healing tool for groups grappling with grief or trauma. School programs used his scholarship funds to provide broadcasting experiences for underrepresented students, ensuring that future storytellers could learn from someone who believed in both wit and compassion. As the calendar turned toward the anniversary of his passing, tributes evolved from solemn remembrance to celebratory reflection. Fans crafted quilt-making circles where each patch honored a favorite Tonight Show moment. Podcasters released special episodes dissecting his final gag, the tongue-in-cheek final punchline of his final aired monologue. Street artists in Los Angeles painted murals depicting Carson at his desk, grin wide and eyes alight, reminding passersby that laughter, once shared, lingers like a warm afterglow. Through all these forms, academic study, creative homage, digital preservation, and community events, Johnny Carson's spirit remained vividly alive. His departure may have created a silence at 11:30 p.m., but the echoes of his kindness, timing, and generosity resounded across generations. In a world that often mistakes loud provocation for impact, Carson's legacy stands as a testament to the enduring power of gentle humor, a reminder that a well-timed smile can be the most radical act of human connection. Even as ghosts of studio lights fade into memory, Johnny Carson's influence pulsates through every crackling microphone and every pixel of our screens. His departure created a silence at 11:30 that no gimmick could fill, yet in that void a chorus of devotion emerged. Fans young and old discovered on streaming platforms that his once broadcast laughter had become timeless, a cultural touchstone renewed with each binging session. As the digital age vaults our memories into the cloud, Carson's monologues and interviews circulate across YouTube, podcasts, and social media, finding new audiences who marvel at the seamless blend of warmth, wit, and unspoken empathy that defined his craft. educational institutions continue to honor his vision. The Johnny Carson School of Communication expanded its curriculum to include modules on the art of conversational interviewing, studying how Carson's monologues underscored broader social narratives. Workshops in Los Angeles and New York now simulate live broadcasts, teaching students the precise pause that can turn a simple joke into a resonant moment. Academics publish papers on Carson's pacing techniques and audience rapport, exploring how his gentle asides fostered trust and continuity across decades. In classrooms and lecture halls around the globe, his spirit endures, as though he never left the desk where countless dreams were born. Digital innovators have leveraged Carson's blueprint for connection, creating apps and podcasts that frame episodes around the Carson continuum. The subtle arcs from opening monologue to guest banter to closing tag. Users can now clip and share segments teaching how a single microphone tilt or eyebrow raise could pivot an entire bit. VR developers have designed immersive Carson studios where enthusiasts don virtual headphones and step into a recreated Studio 6B, complete with red velvet drapes and Ed McMahon's booming laughter echoing through the rafters. In these simulated environments, carbon-based and digital natives alike glean first-hand insights into the whispered alchemy that powered Carson's nightly magic. Collectors and historians keep Carson's artifacts alive, but it's the everyday fans who breathe life into his legend. In quiet living rooms, families still gather to screen vintage episodes, creating multi-generational rituals that echo the cozy familiarity of his era. Online collector communities spring to life each time a rare Tonight Show prop surfaces at auction, sparking bidding wars and spirited debates about provenance. Even street musicians in urban neighborhoods mimic his cadence in gift shop overtures, peppering their performances with Carson-inspired quips to forge spontaneous connections with passers-by. Through these grassroots channels, Carson's ethos persists: humor as bridge, memory as treasure. On the anniversary of his last broadcast, tribute events around the world underscore the depth of his impact. In Burbank, California, fans gather for open-air screenings of his best monologues, lighting lanterns in his honor. In his hometown of Norfolk, Nebraska, schoolchildren don bow ties and recite their favorite lines in assemblies, forging a tactile link to his legacy. Meanwhile, museums host interactive exhibits that invite visitors to handle replica cue cards, experimenting with timing and tone as Carson once did. These live gatherings echo the best of his philosophy, connection through shared experience, ensuring that each generation discovers its own reasons to laugh, pause, and reflect. Yet what resonates most is Carson's unwavering conviction that comedy transcends mere laughter. It forges empathy. He taught us that humor can be a mirror, reflecting society's foibles back to itself with kindness rather than contempt. In an era of fleeting viral clips and attention spans measured in seconds, his art reminds us that patience and subtlety hold power. A well-timed eyebrow, a gentle pause, or an often remark can foster shared understanding across political divides. In classrooms, boardrooms, and living rooms alike, Carson's technique offers a template for thoughtful communication, one anchored in listening as much as speaking. It's a legacy that extends far beyond late-night slots into every conversation we choose to begin with a question rather than a punchline. As we close this chapter on Johnny Carson's story, we celebrate not only a comedian but a custodian of shared humanity. His final curtain may have dropped nearly 2 decades ago, but the spotlight on compassion and craft he ignited still illuminates our collective stage. Each chuckle evoked during a rewatch, every analysis of his narrative cadence, each pause adopted from his playbook affirms that his mastery endures. And so, whether you're a late-night aficionado or a newcomer drawn by word of mouth, remember that Carson's genius lay in making every viewer feel heard, as silence gives way to the echoes of his laughter. We honor his memory by carrying forward the simple yet profound art of connecting through humor. Good night, and may his legacy forever remain unwritten in living smiles. Thank you, Johnny, for endless inspiration.